The buildings we would see of the Daily Bugle, okay, the Baxter building, the Avengers Mansion, Roxxon Corporation, all of these, they have this, you know, 1960s, 70s vibe when it comes to the architecture and stuff. And that exact thing, or quite similar to it, can be found in Al Balad to this day. And I think this is one of the most underrated areas. Hi everyone, today I just wanted to start talking about something that has been on my mind for quite some time, and that is my love for Al Balad. It's something that I really wanted to share with the community, and also, I mean, it's gonna help you guys understand why I took the name Son of Jeddah, which is half of it is inspired by Son of Krypton, Superman's nickname, but there is more to it. Jeddah, the city of Jeddah is a place that's really special. I mean, there are so many layers to it. But today I'm going to show you from the perspective of someone who is a comics aficionado, someone who loves superheroes, someone who loves collecting. Come and take a tour of Al Balad, my favorite spots in Al Balad. Now, as you can see, I'm here right in front of Masjid al-Naghi, which is basically located on King Abdulaziz Street. So as you can see, the road that I'm walking on right now, this is King Abdulaziz Street. This is basically the starting point for Tariq al-Malik, as we call it, which goes all the way towards North Corniche, and as you can see, buses are coming in. Now, one salient feature that I want to talk to you about is that we all are quite keen and interested about the historic district, which is on the other side. But not a lot of people talk about the vintage, modern vintage urban architecture of Al Balad. So for example, this building that you see, I think it belongs to one of the members of Ali Rida family, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. But you look at the architecture of these buildings, okay? Behind me, you can see Al Mahmal Tower, which was built in the 1980s. But this building over here, it's just so quintessential 70s, early 80s architecture. And then you have the Saudi Telecom, which building on the right side. This is where my first memory of Al Baik started, even though the first branch of Al Baik was located on, I think, Shar Al Madaris in Sharafiyya. But there is something I want to show you guys really interesting. Before becoming an action figures comics collector, I was a diecast collector of Matchbox cars. And there was a shop in this alley which was owned by one of the members of the Naghi family. I'm not talking about Sheikh Muhammad Yusuf Naghi or Sheikh Yasir Naghi, no. Somebody from their family would own a shop here, and my mom and dad would buy me die-cast cars of Matchbox. This is way before Hot Wheels had entered the market in Jeddah, okay? So now I'm just heading towards another vintage area. I'm going towards Shara Gabil, and these alleyways, just look at the angle over here. You see Al Mahmal Tower, and then there is this building behind Al Mahmal Tower that you can see over there all the way in the back. Now, Mahmal Tower was built in the 80s, but that building I think goes back to the 1970s. And there is a reason why I connect with these types of architectures, is because as someone who grew up reading Marvel comics, okay, so the buildings we would see of the Daily Bugle, okay, the Baxter building, the Avengers Mansion, Roxxon Corporation, all of these, they have this, 60s, 70s vibe when it comes to the architecture and stuff. And that exact thing, or quite similar to it, can be found in Al Balad to this day. And I think this is one of the most underrated areas. Why? Because a lot of the attention is now going towards the historic district, which rightfully so, because there is so much history over there. You're talking about thousands of years of history, not just like 100-year-old or 200-year-old history. So we have all sorts of shops here. I'm going towards Shara Gabil. Shara Gabil is the street where you will find currency exchanges, gold shops, huge gold shops. And also, if you guys are looking for buying good quality affordable luggage, then yes, you can find American Tourister, you can find Samsonite, you can find all sorts of strollers and suitcases. And right in front, if we walk straight, we see Ashar al-Dhahab, which means Gold Street, intersecting. And on the opposite side starts the historic district of Al Balad, the original, the OG Jeddah, if I might call it. So signs over here. So Souk al Khasiyah is basically your wholesale market. Souk al Nada is where you can get all the gold and suitcases, historic Hajj route, so many things. Now they removed the covering or the shade that would cover. This is Gabil Street, Shara Gabil. Today I'm going to be focusing on the modern part of Al Balad, or the vintage part of Al Balad. So yeah, then I'm gonna go towards Queen's Building and then Bakshan Building, two of my favorite spots from here. So in order for me now to capture Queen's Building and that area going all the way to Bakshan Tower, I'm coming back so that I can show you guys this. I don't know, for some reason I still love this alley quite a lot, even though it doesn't have quite a lot to offer for a comics aficionado or a superhero. But because I grew up here, I would come here with my family. They would shop, especially my mom and my relatives. They would come in and then, you know, buy gold. And, you know, if we would get guests from outside of Saudi Arabia, they would be going to the exchanges just to get their currencies converted. Now, don't think that it's really hot. I'm sweating, yes, because I'm walking fast, but the weather over here is quite pleasant for the month of July, for one simple reason that, you know, the ventilation, the natural, the way Al Balad has been constructed or designed or planned, that's just the way it is. I mean, like, I don't feel any kind of frustration or I'm like suffocating or stuff. Now, this is a beauty. Queen's Building, I think, was built in the 1970s. So you're looking at it, the architecture, you know, still captures your attention. And it was way ahead of its time. Just like the SNB building, which was formerly known as National Commercial Bank. Now it's Saudi National Bank. So I'm now walking towards the Bakshan Tower. Yes, now this is basically a commercial center which was built in the late 80s or the 90s. This is Al Mahmal Center, not the tower. Tower is right behind the trees. Okay, so you can see the tower. Let me try to... Yeah, so I'll take another shot once I'm going back, walking back. But this is Al Mahmal Center, built in the 80s. And, you know, there was a time you would find all the major brands, and it was one heck of a place. It still is. Lots of nostalgia. And then, even though Jeddah has Al Fatahi departmental store, which is equivalent to Harrods, but if I have to consider something which was equivalent to Harrods, would be the Gazzaz Building in Al Balad. Just look at the beautiful afternoon, the shades. And now here comes, okay, you can see the Jeddah Islamic Port Tower from a distance, but now tower. One of the oldest families, I think the oldest family in Jeddah that got the commercial registration license was, I think, Zain Al-Ari Rida family. But then Bakshan, they also represent one of the oldest families, and the Hadrami diaspora that has been responsible for building the economy, not just of Jeddah, but also of Saudi Arabia. So yeah, this is Bakshan Building. It reminds me of the Daily Bugle building, which we would see in the movies or the comics. And this is the spot where one of the biggest musical stores called 747, before Sony Megastar, before Stallions, before any other, this was the spot where 747 would be there. This is where my dad bought Michael Jackson's album that had his songs from the Jacksons, not Jackson 5, but from the Jacksons era. It was the most happening place. If you wanted any American, British singers, music album, something, they even had, I think, vinyl records. And then this building, Corniche Commercial Center. For Eid, we would come here, buy our jeans, sneakers, electronics, you name it. By the way, this is another branch of King Abdulaziz Road. But just look at the architecture. This was also built in the 1980s, in the Saudi oil boom era. And this is how the Bakshan Tower looks like. I think the sun was creating some kind of a visual disturbance, if you will. But now I think it's way better. You guys can get a better view. That's the Al Mahmal Center parking. When you come over here after Asr, which is normally like between 4 and 5, you know, the place starts to become pretty lively. But if you guys want to enjoy comfort, if you guys just want to sit down and relax, find a shade and just sit. There is something about Al Balad that I cannot I struggle to describe. It's so much, at least for me. I hatched in 1979, and since then, you know, I have seen the development of Jeddah from every angle. But this part, along with another part of South Jeddah, which I will share later on, it's like, you know, my spiritual home, if you will. And even to this day, you find a great deal of items, you know, fabric, jewelry, sweets, delicacies at very good prices. But if you forget the market dynamics, it's just wonderful to be here. I need to get a good shot of the Mahmal Tower. So yeah, there it is. Mahmal Tower. My favorite time in Jeddah happens to be during the summer afternoons, the time that starts from 2 p.m. till 4 p.m. There's a lot of calmness, serenity in this part of town. So much history. Just giving you the experience of the shades provided by the trees in Al Balad. You can still find a lot of watch brands, and look what I found, the Batman police watches. So you have all the big names, and that's Masjid al-Naghi, one of the oldest mosques and a beautiful mosque. It was renovated, I think, in the early 2000s, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, that's the Saudi post office taking you towards the Punt Gate. In Arabic, we call it Bab al-Bunt. And that's the Saudi Arabian Monetary Agency head office. Or maybe now it's the regional office, because everything is now, all head offices for government organizations are now in Riyadh, obviously because it's the capital. This is the museum. So this is where my life began, basically. I got into collectibles, even though they were not superhero collectibles. They were Matchbox, Diecast cars. As I said, that Hot Wheels was nowhere to be found in this part of the world back then. And so yeah, so this is where my collectibles journey began. Much of the exposure to the Western pop culture also started from this point. As I had mentioned, that we had 747 music store, so we would be getting Michael Jackson's, Phil Collins, Lionel Richie, Bruce Springsteen, all their albums, Modern Talking, if you were into the Euro pop scene. We would get all of it from here or from Souq Khaldiya, which is in the northern part of Jeddah in Khaldiya, right opposite to Saudi City. And if we wanted to buy clothes for Eid, if we wanted to buy sneakers like Nike, Air Jordans and everything, we would get it from here. In fact, one thing I forgot to mention, that now that market has been demolished, but on same King Abdulaziz Road is the point where my mom and dad bought me and my brother our first ever costumes for Superman and Batman. So let's give you guys another tour, a drive-by tour, if you will. The Bee Gees music fits perfectly in this part of town, because, you know, the same era, the same vibe, and especially in the modern vintage area of Al Balad. Okay, just passing by Arbaeen Lake, and I'll be showing you that particular area where lots of us as kids in Jeddah bought our first ever superhero costumes. Which have now were demolished and then new buildings were erected. So this is the exact location where one of the shops had the Superman, Spider-Man, Captain America, Batman costumes, and even I think they had one for Spider-Woman, if I'm not mistaken, because Spider-Woman was pretty popular in the early 80s because of the animated series. So yeah, so I'm easy. I just, yeah, I think this song captures it beautifully. And I think I'll now draw this video to a conclusion. If you really want to experience vintage side of Al Balad, you know, that still holds that charm of the 70s and the 80s architecture, you need to come to this side as well while you're touring the historic district, which includes Beit Nasif and Madras Al Falah, and so much is there. Masjid Al Shafi, the oldest surviving masjid of Jeddah, whose foundation was laid during the time of the second Caliph of Islam, Umar ibn Khattab. May Allah be pleased with him. So thank you for watching, and I'll be coming back with more. Until next time, take care.